Welcome back everybody to the channel. Today we will be doing a David Reinbacher career simulation. He was drafted 5th overall in the 2023 NHL entry draft by the Montreal Canadiens. So in this video we will be simulating his entire career, his 15-20 year career with the Montreal Canadiens, or whatever it will turn out to be. David Reinbacher, the 6'3" right-handed defenseman taken by Montreal. Some people said they should have gone with Matvei Michkov. There's arguments for both players, but I'm not going to be here to tell you which one is better. We're just going to sit here and watch through Reinbacher's career and see how it unfolds. This video does come brought to you by RJ, who suggested that we do a David Reinbacher career simulation in the Braden Yager video that we did before, so I am getting to that now. Reinbacher is likely the most NHL-ready defenseman to come out of the 2023 draft. We have him here as a 79 overall and medium elite. He's definitely a guy that likes to use his physical abilities as well, using his 6'2", 6'3" frame to get in there, protect the puck, and make moves with it. He's a good two-way defender with some offensive upside, but really he's back there to shut it down defensively, play very solid for your team, which is something that Montreal definitely does need. I've put him at a 79 and have the medium elite title on him, so I'm not sure if he will be in the NHL right away. He could be in the AHL for a year, but either way here, his stats, this is what his stats look like with the 86 discipline, 86 stick checking, good, aggressiveness, durability, and strength, with his shooting and puck skills being a little bit behind everything else. So as always, we will simulate to the draft now, and I will see you guys there. Try to make it so Montreal drafts him. Well, I'll definitely make it so Montreal drafts him, but try to make it so that the rest of the league looks kind of okay. Maybe Connor Bedard at least going to Chicago, hopefully. But I will see you in the NHL draft, where we get Reinbacher on the Montreal Canadiens. Okay guys, I've been at this for about 30 minutes now trying to get David Reinbacher onto the Canadiens, because I try to give Chicago the first overall selection to pick up Bedard. But the thing is, if I don't give them the first overall selection, the team, whichever team is first, picks up Bedard, so it's impossible to get Connor Bedard onto the Chicago Blackhawks. Next, I picked the Arizona Coyotes to be, just cause. And so the way that I can get David Reinbacher to the Canadiens is I have to move to the 3rd overall selection. Then I thought I could trade for the 4th because David Reinbacher is supposed to go at 4. But if I don't, then David Reinbacher always goes at 3 because the team that was at 3 likes to pick him there. So I had to trade for the 3rd overall pick, not select David Reinbacher. I have to pick Adam Fantilli, which I know is not actually what happens in the draft, in the hopes that Montreal selects David Reinbacher, but they might not even do it. But let's find out. With the 4th overall selection in the 2023 draft, Montreal takes David Reinbacher. 30 minutes of my life gone to this guy. For some reason, he doesn't have his X factors, even though I put them on him. I don't understand, dude. I don't understand this. Why doesn't he have his X factors? I gave him X factors. He should have X factors. But either way, his stats look the exact same as they did before. He has not grown yet. We will see how he does in Montreal, how long he stays, if he's here for like 15 years, 20 years. Does he get a Stanley Cup with them? Does he become a Norris Trophy winner? Let's find out. Okay, and here we are, and David Reinbacher looks like does have his X factors, so that's very good. Oh, it's because I don't have him scouted. Okay, so it's something weird about that, even though I turned, Fog of War off. Either way, David Reinbacher is here in the Laval Rocket to start off his first season. He's a 79 overall medium elite player with, his stats looking the same as they have for this whole video so far. He's partnered with Arbor Jack Guy. Very nice. He's only a 78 fighting for some reason. And the rest of the team looks pretty decent as well defensively. Offensive, it's an AHL team, but they've got a lot of people in the 70s, so that should be good. And goaltending is Jonathan Quick down here. Wow, so some veteran leadership for sure. But in David Reinbacher's first year coming over to North America, let's see how he performs. And the Laval Rocket finished quite well, going 40, 24, and 8 in their 72 games, which is good enough to put them into the playoffs. So let's hope David Reinbacher can lift a trophy early in his career. And Reinbacher played very, very well. In 72 games playing on that top line, he has 41 points, still a 79 overall medium elite player, and his stats I don't think have gone up, but that is some incredible point production out of a young David Reinbacher, right-handed, right defenseman. So in the playoffs, let's hope that he can continue this pace and help the Laval Rocket win a trophy. And Laval goes on a little bit of a run there in the playoffs, but they do eventually, unfortunately, fall in the, I guess that's the Eastern Conference Finals to the farm team of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who fall in the Calder Cup Finals. But Laval definitely having, getting benefit out of David Reinbacher early, and Montreal organization should be happy with that run from the group. And in those 18 playoff games that Reinbacher played, he grew to an 80 overall. His stats looking a little bit better, obviously, just a little bit. Don't see anything too crazy. I think deking and hand-eye went up a little. But other than that, 80 overall medium elite. And he had 10 points in 18 games. So over point per game in the regular season and in the playoffs as well. So a great season out of David Reinbacher. A great run as well for the team. And we should see him in the NHL next season. And here we are, the first year of David Reinbacher's career in the NHL. He's an 81 overall now, medium elite, two-way defender. His defense has gone up, as has his physical. I think his strength went up a little bit, and his puck skills definitely went up a bit as well. So growing in all the right areas. He's partnered with veteran Dmitry Kulikov on his left. The second line is Caden Gooley with veteran Eric Johnson, and the first line Tyson Barrie with Michael Matheson. So a pretty decent defensive core. Nobody outrageous, no like a great elite level players, but just a decent depth defensive core. Offensively, we have Juraj Slavkovsky, Nick Suzuki, and Cole Caulfield as that top pair. Slavkovsky a medium elite 83 overall, Suzuki a medium elite 88, and Caulfield medium elite 88 as well, with X factors, so that could be a +5. Second line of Sean Farrell, Kirby Doc, and Tom Wilson, who they picked up. Third line with Brendan Gallagher, Jake Evans, and Emil Heineman. And fourth line, Dennis Gurianov, Oscar Sundqvist, and Josh Anderson. Not bad at all. Goaltending now is Jake Allen and Jonathan Quick. So a good team here in Montreal. Don't know if it will be a playoff team, but I do know that David Reinbacher is in the running for that Calder Trophy. So let's see if he can pick it up. And look at this. In Reinbacher's first career year, the Montreal Canadiens go 44, 27, and 11, which is more than good enough to get them in the playoffs at 8th place in the NHL. Reinbacher, however, struggled quite mightily in his first year, getting injured for 23 games as well and only scoring 6 points in 59. He is, however, a plus player, which is decent enough, and only took 27 penalty minutes as a big boy who likes to hit with his body. So not a horrible rookie season out of Reinbacher. Not good enough for the Calder, but we're going to look for a little bit better things in the playoffs, and hopefully Montreal can make a run. And oh boy, in the playoffs, the Montreal Canadiens get swept out in 4 games. But not only that, at least they do get swept out by a team that only lost 2 games in the entirety of the playoffs. The Buffalo Sabres apparently had everybody's number, sweeping Montreal, beating the New York Rangers in 6, sweeping Florida, and then sweeping the Stanley Cup Finals against the Avalanche. So a crazy run from Buffalo, and unfortunately Montreal just comes up against a really good team. And looking at defensemen, it looks like David Reinbacher was injured in the playoffs as he did not play a single game here. They had to go with Kulikov, Johnson, and David Savard instead of Reinbacher in there. So weird stuff. Reinbacher gets injured in the regular season and gets injured in the playoffs as well. So he cannot play a single game, man. So maybe that hurts Montreal. Maybe it doesn't make that much of an impact, but hopefully Reinbacher can have a healthier second year. And look at this, in David Reinbacher's second career year in the NHL, he still has 2 years left on his entry-level deal, and he is on that top pair alongside of Caden Gooley. A real big top pair as well, 6'2 and 6'3 each. We still have Tyson Barrie, Mike Matheson, Kulikov, and this time Justin Barron has made the roster. Offense still looks pretty similar. Juraj Slafkovsky up to an 88 though will definitely help out. The second line remains the same. The third line remains fairly similar as well. And the fourth line, an addition of Riley Kidney and Tyson Jost. Goaltending, Jussi Saros has entered the fold. So a really good Montreal team. I think this is definitely a playoff roster for sure. And David Reinbacher hoping to have a healthy season. Look at his stats. They did increase a little bit here. Defense up to 4 stars. Puck skills up to 4 stars. Census still at 3. Shooting still at 3.5. But his accuracy has gone up. Everything else kind of remains the same. But David Reinbacher looking for a much healthier regular season. And in David Reinbacher's second year in the NHL, the Montreal Canadiens go 45-32-5, 9th place in the entire league, 1 spot worse from where they were before, also scoring less goals than they are allowing. So I'm not sure how they made it in. Maybe they were just getting destroyed when they lost games and winning a close ones. But either way, Montreal in the playoffs, and that's all that matters. And Reinbacher does indeed have a healthy season at the very least. He plays 78 games, so not a full 82 yet, but 78 is respectable for sure. Puts in 17 points as well, 3 goals, 14 assists. Is a -6 on that top line though, so perhaps the top unit is maybe not good, and he'd maybe not be good enough yet to be in that top pair. But the Montreal Canadiens are the 9th best team in the NHL anyways, only 46 penalty minutes as well, so not hurting the team too much there. Stats look pretty similar to how they did at the start of the year. So let's get to the playoffs where hopefully Reinbacher can be healthy for them and contribute to a good run. And unfortunately, the Montreal Canadiens go out in round 2. It is at least a improvement over the first season this year. Hopefully, David Reinbacher got some games in, but they do fall to Columbus, who falls to Tampa, who wins the Stanley Cup. But yes, in his first appearance in the NHL playoffs here, David Reinbacher plays in all 11 games and he puts in 5 points. Also does grow to an 84 overall. So hopefully with some growth in the offseason, he can be better equipped for that first line. He was playing 24 minutes a night in the postseason and the regular season, I think. Look at this postseason, almost 25 minutes a night. Regular season, 24-30. So definitely getting the ice time. He just has to put it all together in the offseason, get a bit of training done, and hopefully come back as an 85-86 to be on that top line. All right, guys, so this is Reinbacher's third career year in the NHL. He's still an 84 overall with medium elite potential, and he's on that top line once again with Caden Gooley. Below him, we have Justin Barron and Ethan Bear, and below them, John Klingberg and Jordan Harris. So David Reinbacher on the last year of his deal as well. So this is a contract year. He will definitely be motivated to make moves happen, have a very good season to hopefully convince management that he is worth a pretty penny. Goaltending still Jussi Saros. Forwards still look the same with the top 3 in there. So possibly a playoff team once again, but let's see how Reinbacher does in his contract year. So for the third year in a row here, Montreal make the playoffs. They go 43-29-10 this year. I find they always have a lot of overtime losses, but either way, a good record, good enough to make them 6th in the NHL. And David Reinbacher did his thing out there in his contract year, scoring 23 points in 78 games with 12 goals and 11 assists as well. So really having a good shooting percentage as a defenseman. 9.4% is pretty dang good for a defenseman. Also a plus 26, so definitely being beneficial for them on that top unit, and playing at 22.5 minutes a night. So some good stats from David Reinbacher. Let's hope that he can carry them into the playoffs. But unfortunately, the Montreal Canadiens run into a rough matchup and end up falling out of the playoffs in 7 games. Looks like the Columbus Blue Jackets win the Stanley Cup, so congratulations to them. But Montreal, another early round exit. They're going to be looking to, improve on that next year. But you cannot fault David Reinbacher whatsoever. He scores 4 points in 7 games played. Also grows to an 86 overall, so he will be demanding a pretty penny in his restricted free agency status. So let's see what he can get. This is what his stats look like. He's got 4-star defense, 3.5-star skating, 5-star physical, 4.5-star puck skills, 3.5-star senses, all that good stuff. So really good player for Montreal. Let's hope that he can remain here. Only played 22 minutes of time on ice per night in the playoffs. Would like to see a little bit more out of that, maybe like 23, 24. But either way, he's going to be on that top pair for many more years to come, hopefully. But we will see what kind of contract he gets in his 4th season. And David Reinbacher now at an 87 overall for the Montreal Canadiens. This is what his stats look like. Look pretty similar. Still got that 5-star physical, 5-star puck skills, 4.5-star defense and things like that. But his contract is a 5-year deal at $6.950 million. So a big deal for him. A bit of a bridge deal, to be honest. And maybe he took a bit of a discount as well. Still partnered with Kaiden Guhle, which has been a good pair for the Canadiens for 3 years now. Arbor Xhekaj up in the NHL alongside John Klingberg, and then Justin Barron and Bo Akey has made his way to the Montreal Canadiens, which I find so funny. If you watched the last career simulation we did, you know why. That's super funny. On offense, we have Slafkovsky, Suzuki, and Cole Caulfield still as that top pair. As that top line. Second line now, Chris Kreider, Kirby Dach, and Philip Mazar. Then Emil Heineman, Sean Farrell, Anthony Duclair, Riley Kidney, Xavier Simoneau, and Vinces Rohrer. All right, I love those names down there. Still at UC Soros, so I assume this is going to be another playoff team, but we will find out at the end of Reinbacher's 4th season, I think. And for the first time in David Reinbacher's career, the Montreal Canadiens do not make the playoffs. They miss, going 36, 29, and 17. Such weird simulation from the Montreal Canadiens, losing 17 overtime games. Real bad luck in the 3-on-3 there for sure. And Reinbacher once again improves over last season, scoring 27 points, which is a career high. Also plays in all 82 games for maybe the first time in his career. Yes, it is. So for the first time in his career, he plays all 82 games and he gets a career high out of it. He also is a +3, so not hurting his team that missed out on the playoffs. And he played 25 minutes a night. So real good stats out of David Reinbacher. They just need a little bit more of a team around them to make the playoffs. Okay, so here we are once again, Reinbacher's 5th season in the NHL now, starting on that line with Kaiden Guhle. Kaiden Guhle and Reinbacher have been defensive partners for quite some time now, so gonna hope to keep running the show here in Montreal. Second pair is Siegenthaler with Barron, and then Bo Akey and Ty Smith bringing up the rear. Offense still looks pretty similar. It's definitely serviceable. Uri Slafkovsky has not grown much. Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield have remained fairly stagnant at 88, 89. Other than that, the team looks pretty good, to be honest. Like, this could definitely be a playoff team with UC Soros between the pipes as well. They're going to be in the mix for sure. They might be a tweener team, but I could definitely see them getting it done. So let's find out at the end of David Reinbacher's 5th career year. Let's see what he can do. And here we are, the end of Reinbacher's 5th career year in the NHL. The Montreal Canadiens go 43, 29, and 9, good enough to make the playoffs. Unfortunate for the Winnipeg Jets, who finish 11th in the league and do not make the playoffs. Rough stuff, as the West must be that much better than the East, but Montreal not complaining about it. They make the playoffs. And it looks like Reinbacher got injured at the end of the year, missing out on 12 games in total. He also had 26 and 70, which means he was on pace for a career year. Doesn't quite get there, though. Only a +5 as well, 38 penalty minutes, 124 shots. How much time on ice is he playing this year? About 25 minutes on ice, but him being injured going into the playoffs is not good for the Montreal Canadiens, as he is their top pairing defenseman. So let's hope he can be healthy for the playoffs and maybe get back, hopefully in the first round, but let's hope Montreal can go on a run either way. And Montreal fans everywhere are furious right here. They beat out Boston in round 1, but then fall to Toronto in 5 games. They go out in the second round to Toronto, one of their most hated rivals, one of their most long-term rivals as well. So that's got to sting for any Montreal fans out there. They lose to Toronto in 5 games in round 2. But let's see if Reinbacher made an appearance or if he was injured the entire playoff run. And Reinbacher was indeed good enough to play a few games in the playoffs here. He plays 7 games, scores 4 points, is a -1 with 2 penalty minutes, and playing how much time on ice? Playing almost 27 minutes on ice per game. He's still at that 87 overall. His stats still look incredible. 90 stick checking, 90 defensive awareness, 91 passing, 90 puck control, very aggressive as well. He has good strength, 92. So, He's a real good, strong player. We just got to hope that Montreal can build around him. He's only here for another 3 more years, so let's hope that Montreal can do something with this core. And this might be everything that Montreal needs. David Reinbacher, with 3 years left on his deal, is now partnered up with Shea Theodore on his left for 3 years. So both these guys on the same type of contract. We have Justin Barron with Siegenthaler still, and then we have Radek Linter, who is a medium elite prospect drafted in 2025, 17th overall. That's a very good prospect, partnered with Bo Akey down there. Looking on offense, we do not have Cole Caulfield anymore. Wow, Cole Caulfield must have left in free agency. Captain Nick Suzuki is still here, though, with Slavkovsky, Philip Messar, Emil Heineman, who's an 87 overall. Crazy stuff. Other than that, though, the team looks fairly similar. Shane Pinto's here, Hendrix Lapierre, and all these guys with goaltending of Ken Savage, love the name, and Yusei Soro. So they have a good team. Their offense struggling a little bit, but their defense is fantastic. Let's hope that Reinbacher and Shea Theodore can hold this team together for his, I believe it's his 5th year. For his 6th year. Let's hope that these two can be the quarterbacks of this team, both on the power play, on the penalty kill, all that stuff, and keep that puck out of the net. Reinbacher's 6th year. Let's see how it goes. And a very unfortunate season, as the East is a little bit stronger than the West, which allows Arizona to squeak into the playoffs instead of Montreal. Montreal goes 40-33-9, which is just shy of a playoff push. Reinbacher, though, playing in all 82 games, does indeed get a career high in points with 32 points. Only is a +1, even though he's playing alongside of Shea Theodore, which is kind of strange. But also 63 penalty minutes, takes a lot more penalty minutes than he usually does, and playing 25 minutes of time on ice. So Shea Theodore and Reinbacher were definitely carrying a big load this season. Reinbacher still an 87 overall, but let's hope maybe he can grow one more overall in the offseason. That would be ideal, but if not, definitely is still a great defenseman for any team that will have him. With 2 more years left on his contract, let's see if Montreal can't make the playoffs and maybe get a Stanley Cup. Okay, here we are, Reinbacher's 7th year in the NHL, still partnered with Shea Theodore, so the defense looks pretty similar. They do pick up Matthew Virgilio with Jürgen Siegenthaler there on that third pair. Forward still looking quite similar. Josh Norris is here now alongside of Shane Pinto, Jean-Gabriel Pajot. But yeah, this offense looks quite similar to how it did last season. And then Ken Savage still between the pipes for them. So no major changes over the offseason whatsoever. Just, Reinbacher still at an 87 overall. I'm not sure if he's going to grow much more than that. With 2 more years left on his deal, let's hope Montreal can get into the playoffs. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Montreal squeaks into the playoffs. They don't actually squeak in. 43-27-12 is quite a respectable record. Montreal has been having these major overtime losses, though, like 12. I think they have 15 one year, so just absolutely crazy stuff out here. But 12th place, good enough to make the playoffs, so let's see what they can do in those playoffs. Hopefully they can make some noise. And Reinbacher, with a pretty interesting season here, plays in all 82 games, has a career high in points, but a career low in plus-minus. So despite playing with Shea Theodore, Reinbacher actually struggles a bit more defensively. But that being said, the team does still make the playoffs, so I don't think they're worried too much. Reinbacher also playing 25.5 minutes of time on ice per night, still at an 87 overall, with his stats looking pretty similar. Definitely worked on his puck skills and physicality the most in his career so far. But going into the playoffs, physicality is exactly what you need, so let's hope Montreal can make a bit of a run. Oh man, Montreal fans everywhere are angry now. It's been a very long time since Montreal has made it out of the second round. Granted, getting to the second round is pretty good. That's the top 8 in the league, but Montreal is consistently a first or second round exit, which I don't think the fans of Montreal are going to be too happy about. They're very passionate out there in Quebec, so we know that, well, in Montreal, but it's in the province of Quebec. But we know that they are, pushing their management for bigger and better things. Montreal out in the first round. Boston wins the Stanley Cup. Congrats to them. But let's see what Reinbacher did in those 7 games. Yikes. And in those 7 games, Reinbacher with only 1 point and a -3. It's not the end of the world because he only played 7 games. Still a small sample size, but You would definitely like to see a little bit more out of somebody who's on your top defensive pairing. Also, only playing 23 minutes of time on ice, so could be playing a little bit more, but as an 87 overall, you'd like to see a little bit more than just 1 point. But Reinbacher, going into the last year of his contract, going to be interesting to see what he decides to do, but Montreal definitely going to have to make a better push if they want Reinbacher to sign back on with them in the offseason. Year 8 of David Reinbacher's career now, and he is alongside of Matthias Samuelsson here. We see Shea Theodore down there on that third defensive pairing alongside of Bo Akey. Radek Linter has not grown above an 82 overall as a medium elite, which is unfortunate. Donald Wiggins is here, medium top 4. Other than that, the offense still looks kind of similar. They do have Dylan Guenther now on that second line, but other than that, looks pretty similar. And goaltending wise, 83 overall, Ivan Prosvetov, who was a 4th round selection in 2018 by Arizona, so he's getting the chance to start. Good for him. But I'm used to saying Bo Akey. David Reinbacher's 8th season in the NHL. Let's hope it's a good one. And it's also the last year of his contract. So Montreal going to be looking to impress David Reinbacher, and David Reinbacher looking to impress Montreal to hopefully get a bit of a raise. But we will see what happens and what kind of a contract he decides to sign at the end of the year. But first of all, we got to play the season in front of us and hope that Reinbacher can have a great season. And if Montreal wanted to convince David Reinbacher to sign on with them, I do not think this was the best way to do it. They miss out on the playoffs here, finishing 23rd in the NHL, going 40, 36, and 6. Don't know if David Reinbacher is going to want to sign on to a team that did not make the playoffs last year, but he also has spent his entire career with Montreal, so maybe he will want to give them a discount. Maybe he will want to stay here. He likes, the environment. He wants to raise a family here, things like that. So we will find out at the end of the season. But first, let's take a look at his stats. And despite Reinbacher's team having a bad season, he actually has a pretty good one himself, scoring 28 points and being a +8 as well on a rough team. Also playing 20, just about 25 minutes of time on ice per night. It's a pretty good season out of Reinbacher. It's not a career high or anything like that, but it is definitely up there. High 20s is kind of where we've established him these past 6 seasons or so. So definitely in that average, and it's a good season out of David Reinbacher on the last year of his deal now. Let's find out where he goes in free agency. And in Reinbacher's 9th season in the NHL, he's going to be partnered alongside Michael Vukovic, and above him is Moritz Seider. He signed a deal with the Florida Panthers for 6 years at $9.475 million. He's on a team with big Moritz Seider, who's getting paid $15 million for the next 3 years. The defense looks amazing, obviously. On offense, Matthew Tkachuk came home here, or I guess he didn't come home. Matthew Tkachuk is still here, sorry. Barkov is here as well with Kaliev, who came over. And other than that, Shane Pinto is back with David Reinbacher, which is kind of funny. But other than that, the depth is a little bit weak. Goaltending wise, Spencer Knight at 88 overall can definitely get the job done, but backed up by Backer, not going to be good enough at a 63. I think this team could be a playoff team just because they have Reinbacher and Seider, Barkov, and Matthew Tkachuk. So I assume they could be a playoff team, but let's find out. Reinbacher's 9th season. And in a year when I thought they could have been a fringe playoff team, turns out the Panthers are one of the worst teams in the NHL, actually going 34, 37, and 11, which is pretty brutal and not good enough to make the playoffs. Reinbacher, however, has a fantastic season, playing in 80 games and getting 30 points, being a +5 as well, playing alongside of his partner, who I forget who it was. Looks like they picked up Alex DeBrincat at the trade deadline also, and that still wasn't good enough to get them over the hump and be a playoff team, which is pretty absurd. I'm not sure how this team simulated so poorly. Reinbacher, though, was playing 23 minutes of time on ice per night. He also is hitting and blocking. That's a stat that I haven't been looking at too much. How are his hits and blocks looking for his entire career? 100 hits and 100 blocks basically a season. Yeah, that's a guy that you want on your team on your defensive side for sure. Giveaways, takeaways are looking like that. But either way, in Reinbacher's 9th season, it's not a great one for his team, but it is good for him. He still has 5 more years left on his deal, though, so he's still got plenty of time to make it work here in Florida. Year 10 of Reinbacher's career now. He's partnered alongside of Moritz Seider this year instead of being a line below him, but that means that the depth is not there as much on defense. Looking at offense now, Matthew Tkachuk and Barkov are both dropping off. So is Alex DeBrincat. So this team, although, you might assume they make the playoffs, I'm not sure that they're a playoff team this year, as all their stars have gotten a bit worse. Goaltending is still Spencer Knight, but again, he dropped 1 overall, and Backer's still at a 65 overall. So, it's a good team. They have the stars, but they just don't have the depth around them. But maybe these stars will be able to pull them up and pull them through to a playoff position, but there's only one way to find out. Let's get to simulating. Oh my goodness. And the aging Florida Panthers here are the third worst team in the league, finishing in 30th place, going 30, 43, and 9. Yikes. Oh goodness, and despite being on an incredible, being on a line with an incredible teammate in Moritz Seider, David Reinbacher does have a great point production, scoring at 34 points, which ties his all-time high with Montreal, but a minus 31? That is unacceptable out of somebody who's getting almost 26 minutes of time on ice per night. Crazy stuff out of David Reinbacher. His stats all look the same basically since, he got to that 87 overall. Has not grown, has not shrunk, but really rough statistical season in the plus minus verse, but in the points, at least he is up there at an all-time high. But Florida really needs to get a good draft pick here. They're picking at number 3. I will check the draft lottery and things like that. Maybe we'll go into the draft and see who they decide to select, but Reinbacher, man, needs to have a better season with a better team next year. Oh man, and look at this in the draft lottery. Florida drops from 3 to 5, so they will have the 5th overall selection in the draft. And with that 5th overall selection, the Florida Panthers will take a left wing sniper medium elite at 81 overall. That's an amazing pick. I thought that was going to be around a 77, 78 because look at these. The picks 2 through 4 here, these 3 picks are all in the high 70s. They I guess have better scouts. They take an 81 overall sniper here. So that's real good for their team. And he has great X factors as well. So hopefully Florida's on the up and up coming into next season. And okay, Reinbacher's 11th season in the NHL now, I believe, and he's still partnered with Moritz Seider, so hopefully he can have a bit more of a better defensive season. But below him, at least we do have a bit more depth. 81 and 79 is not great for your second pair, but, when Seider's getting paid $15.6 million and Reinbacher getting paid $9.8 for another 4 years, it's tough to find the money for it. So an okay defensive core, and then offense, what happened here? So they have Jeffrey Eager, who was their 5th overall selection last year, but they have no Alexander Barkov or Matthew Tkachuk on their first line anymore. Those guys, maybe they retired, or maybe they went to a different team. I don't know. And then the second line's okay with Jaden Lynn having some X factors, all right, but nothing crazy here. Again, I'm not impressed by this offensive core. And then goaltending, at least they have depth. At least they have 2 serviceable goaltenders. 83 and 82 is a bit low, but it's better than having a 65 overall as your backup. So David Reinbacher, 11th season in the NHL, I believe, and he's going to try to make a splash with a rough-looking roster. Let's see if he can do it. And you know what? The Florida Panthers were actually fighting for a playoff spot here late in the season as the Ottawa Senators somehow get in at 21. So they were only 3 points behind a playoff spot. They do finish the season 39, 37, and 6 though, so not a great record whatsoever. They still do have a young core for sure. Well, not really that young, but they're just not great. To be honest, they do have Jeffrey, whatever that guy's name was, who they drafted 5th overall, who's on their roster. But Ottawa beats them in the playoff spot position here. So David Reinbacher once again misses out on the playoffs. And Reinbacher plays in 77 games and has a bit of a weird season. At least he is a plus this year. Last year he was minus like 30 something. This year though, being plus 2, scoring 20 points is not bad whatsoever in 77 games. Not the pace that we've come to know out of him. But look at this, Moritz Seider's up here at 45. Also, Jeffrey Eager had a 59-point rookie season. That might get him a Calder trophy. But we're not here about them. We're here to look at David Reinbacher, who's still an 87 overall, now at the age of 30, with 3 more years left on his deal. he's got to be itching to try to get a Stanley Cup right now. Played 25 minutes time on ice. He's definitely an amazing top pairing defenseman. Just looking for that point production out of him, which we haven't got. Also, how many hits did he throw this year? Yeah, I can see it here, I think. How many hits? He didn't hit as much as usual. Actually, yes, he did. He had 148 hits, what am I saying, and 93 blocks. So a big boy, uses his body, goes out there and throws it as well. And David Reinbacher, 20 points in 77 games, not bad. And here we are at the start of David Reinbacher's 12th year in the NHL. He is still partnered with Moritz Seider, who is now 34 years of age. And it looks like David Reinbacher actually dropped in overall. Perhaps that is because of statistical performance, but it means his defensive awareness and shot blocking have gone down. Also, his strength went down. Other than that, looks fairly similar. Maybe his puck control dropped a little bit, but looks pretty similar other than that. We do have Palinka and Yakola, maybe? Rasmus Anderson and Orlando Harrison here. Offensively now, Lou Volk signed on to this team, making $11.9 million for the next 7 years with Callum Ritchie here. And then David Pastrnak also signed at 39 years of age, a 1-year deal, $7 million. That's great for the team. We do have Jeffrey Eager, the 5th overall selection last year, still on his entry-level deal with Hendrik Lapierre. But again, they have the stars of David Pastrnak, Volk, and Eager, but after that, and then on defense, obviously, Reinbacher and Moritz Seider, but after that, nothing too crazy here. We do have an 83, but backed up by a 66 overall goaltender. That is rough right there. And yeah, so it's an okay team. They have the star power once again, but they don't have the depth. So I'm going to be interested to see if this team makes it. But with David Reinbacher still only has 3 years left on his deal, he's going to want this team to move forward, or he's going to leave them in free agency in the next 3 years, or maybe even retire. So we'll find out after this season, his 12th one in the NHL, what this team can do. And once again here, the Florida Panthers miss out on the playoffs. They finished 19th in the NHL. They go 39, 33, and 10, and it sucks because a team like Arizona, who finished below them, make the playoffs. And, they're close to the Winnipeg Jets, though. They are still below them, but Arizona, who's below them, make it. Florida, though, misses out. But you know what? It's not a bad season out of David Reinbacher whatsoever. All 82 games played. Scores 22 points and is a plus 11. Does have 71 penalty minutes though, so that's kind of a lot. Playing 24 minutes on the ice per night and still getting 100 hits and blocks. So he's still out there making an impact on the roster at an 86 overall. Now he's going into his 13th season, I believe. So let's see if he can get it done this year. Only 2 more years left on this deal, and he might want to get out of Florida as soon as possible. But anyways, let's simulate to his next year. It is now Reinbacher's 13th year in the NHL. He's still partnered with 35-year-old Moritz Seider. They have Justin Barron, who was once playing with Reinbacher, Sutton, Palinka, and Harrison. A decent defensive core for sure. Offensively now, they do have Ivan Petrov at 91 overall, who's making $14.88 million for the next 7 years. Speaking of contracts, though, Reinbacher, with only 2 years left on his, might want a change of scenery. Jeffrey Eager, an 85 overall, gonna have to get paid. Lou Volk still here, Lind and Noonan, but again, this is not a fantastic team whatsoever. Goaltending wise, we have Marco Rantanen at an 82 overall, backed up by a 71. So Reinbacher gonna need to do a lot of heavy lifting once again, and I don't even know if he's gonna make the playoffs. And oh baby, for the first time in quite a while, David Reinbacher is going to be in the playoffs. The Florida Panthers go 45, 28, and 9 somehow, which is good enough to get them in. And take a bow, David Reinbacher. This man plays in all 82 games, scores 27 points, and is a plus 29. Only taking 56 penalty minutes as well. Playing 23 minutes of time on ice per night and hit 138 people. Oh my goodness, this man was throwing his body. Also had 2 fights. Not afraid to drop them if he has to. But 27 points in 82 games is not bad whatsoever. And welcome back to the playoffs, David Reinbacher. Let's see what you can do, my friend. And in these playoffs, David Reinbacher does indeed go the furthest he ever has in his career, but he unfortunately falls in the Eastern Conference Finals to Boston. And congratulations to Seattle, who win the Stanley Cup. Reinbacher, though, back in those playoffs, he performs the way that we know he can, getting 8 points in 16 games, scoring a point every other game. That's great stuff. Playing 24 minutes of time on ice per night and getting 26 hits in 18 games, 16 games is not bad whatsoever. Partnered with Moritz Seider, these two are a duo for sure. -3 is kind of rough, but it is in the playoffs, and he's going to be playing a lot of minutes, 24 minutes out there, so not too surprised, but it does jump up to an 87 for his last season of his deal, his last contract year, so let's try to make it a good one, David. And just a quick aside that David Reinbacher's partner for the past 5 years or so, probably around 5 or 6 years, has indeed retired. Moritz Seider retires as an 88 overall. He could still get it done, but decides to call it a career. So congratulations on a great career to Moritz Seider. And David Reinbacher, now at 32 years of age, is on the last year of his deal here in Florida, and the team does not look great without Moritz Seider. He does have a 79 overall guy here, offensive defenseman with X factors, but he's 30 years old, so not going to be too amazing. The other defense don't look great. We do still have Petrov, Callum Ritchie, and Noonan. We do have Jeffrey Eager, still as a sniper, still with 5-star shooting, but hasn't grown much above 84. Valk and Lind, however, both at 88. That's great. Then a third line with Steven Jacquizzi, who's a low elite, drafted in the second round a couple of years ago. So it's an okay team for sure, but not amazing. Goaltending, Spencer Knight back here at an 80 overall now. That's pretty funny to see. But either way, Reinbacher, no longer with Moritz Seider, is going to have to carry a lot more weight. Wow, and the Florida Panthers, even with a depleted roster, they do make the playoffs, going 41, 25, and 16. It is David Reinbacher's last year with the organization as well, perhaps, so a good time to make the playoffs. And Reinbacher plays in 73 games, and given the chance to shine, he does, as he scores a career high in points with 38 in the NHL, a career high in 73 games. That's amazing stuff. We love to see that. And if he would have played it all 82, maybe it would have been closer to 41, 42, maybe in 45 range if he had a good last 9 games. But great season out of David Reinbacher and great season out of Florida. Unfortunately, in the playoffs here, David Reinbacher and the Florida Panthers fall to Buffalo in 6 games. An unfortunate run, as it is David Reinbacher's last season on a contract, so maybe he's going to go somewhere else, but let's see what he did in those 6 games. And it looks like Reinbacher might have been injured going into the playoffs, as he only plays 2 games and is a +1, so he's not hurting the team at all, but definitely not helping them out too much either. 22.5 minutes of time on ice per night, and had 2 hits and a block in 2 games. Yeah, it's not bad, but didn't really do too much. On the last year of his deal, he's going to free agency most likely, unless he decides to re-sign, but we will see where he goes in his, 14th season or something like that, maybe 13th season coming up, so let's see where he goes. And Reinbacher, in his 15th season in the NHL, finds himself alongside of Ilya Zaitsev on this top defensive pairing here. It's the right defenseman, getting paid $15.215 million for the next 4 years. Crazy contract out of David Reinbacher. Zaitsev getting paid $14 million for the next 5 years. So they've got money tied up in defense, and it means that they have a 66 overall on their third pairing. Offensively now, oh my goodness, this team looks good. Soderstrom as a 93 overall high elite prospect, making $13.9 million. Bancroft making $14 million. Like, how do they have this kind of money here? Then Guerin, low elite, making $2 million. Okay, that's fair. Kavanaugh here making $12 million as an 88. Like, this money is crazy here. $2 million for this guy at 82. But then other than that, they don't have anything, but they have a real good top 6. Actually, you know what? I'm getting sidetracked with all these X factors. An 82 overall on your second line's not good. An 80 overall on your first line's not good, but they have a 91, 93, and 88 as their top guys there. Do they have a goalie? Yeah, they have an 84 overall goaltender. So I think this is this could definitely be a playoff team. Reinbacher and Zaitsev here holding it down defensively, and on the offense, Soderstrom, Bancroft, and Kavanagh are the trio up there. So let's hope Reinbacher can have a good 15th season in the NHL. His stats still look good at an 87 overall. I'm not sure how many years he has left, but he signed on for 4, so let's make it a good first year right now, Reinbacher, with a new team back up above the border once again. And look at this. Finally, Reinbacher finds himself on an amazing team. The Jets go 53, 23, and 6, which is good enough for a President's Trophy, Reinbacher's first trophy of his entire career. And David Reinbacher has an incredible season with this team, scoring 35 points in only 80 games. He is injured, though, going into the playoffs. That's something we have to keep an eye on. But a plus 43 is the highest of his career, I believe. Let me just check that. Yes, it is. By 14, it's the highest of his career. So an amazing year out of David Reinbacher. Only 42 penalty minutes as well. A bit more disciplined than he has been in the past. Playing 25 minutes of time on ice per night and giving us 120 hits and 95 block shots, which he does every year regardless. So a great year out of David Reinbacher. Let's see if he can get healthy for the playoffs and transition that into playoff performances for the Winnipeg Jets. And the President's Trophy curse is real as Winnipeg falls in round number 2 to the Dallas Stars. An unfortunate run out of Winnipeg. Let's see if David Reinbacher got in the lineup at all. And yes, he did. Reinbacher playing through injury as he has done many times in these playoffs here. Playing in 11 games, he scores 6 points, is a -2, which is very strange, and took 23 penalty minutes in 11 games. That's really unfortunate. That's way too many penalty minutes for, somebody like that. But he did play 26.5 minutes of time on ice, so that's a lot of time. He also had basically a hit and a block per game, so doing his thing out there, just -2 is unfortunate, but he still does have 3 more years left on his deal after this one, so gonna be looking to make another run with these Winnipeg Jets, and I think they can do it, man. Reinbacher, now in his 16th season in the NHL, still has 3 more years left on his deal here with Winnipeg, still partnered with Zaitsev as well. The offense still looks pretty similar. It's Soderstrom, Bancroft, and Kavanagh running things up here. Other than that, though, they did lose, I forget who it was, but they had another X-Factor player that they have lost to free agency, and then goaltending Bellamy with Bannock. So a decent team here. Again, another team that, has the stars but does not have the depth. It's a little bit worse than last year, but they were President's Trophy winners last year, so I still expect a playoff run. And the Winnipeg Jets have a bit of a fall off from last year. Not first place in the NHL this year, but 10th will still get the job done, going 41, 29, and 12. Good enough to make the playoffs. And Reinbacher, in his older age here, now 35 years old, has a career year basically once again, man. Last year, getting so close to a career year, only 3 points away. This year, he one-ups his year in Florida 2 years ago. So he's had great, the last 3 seasons have been amazing. Last 4 seasons even have been so incredible for David Reinbacher. Known as like a plus 10, 20-point guy, 39 points as well, career high. Crazy stuff out of David Reinbacher at 35. This guy just does not age. He was on ice for 24.5 minutes as well, and threw 148 hits with 99 blocks. Shots. Crazy season out of David Reinbacher, and let's hope he can transition that into the postseason as well. But once again, despite a great year, the Winnipeg Jets, again, same as last season, fall in 5 games in round number 2. This time, though, to the Stanley Cup champions, the Seattle Kraken. So nothing to be too ashamed of there. They also sweep out the Kings in round 1. So great first round, but a real rough second one. Let's see what David Reinbacher did. And David Reinbacher played in 9 games in the postseason, and he had 3 assists, 3 points, 0 plus minus, kind of an average performance out of him in these playoffs here. 8 hits, 10 blocks, like pretty average stuff out of him, playing 24 minutes of time on ice per night. That's the one thing you can count on him for. He's always going to be playing 24, 25, 26 minutes of time on ice every single night he goes out there. But now at the age of 35, still with 2 more years left on his deal, let's see what he decides to do in the offseason. And for the first time in his career, we see David Reinbacher drop off a few overall. Now at exact top 6 potential, drop to an 85. His defensive stats going down a little bit, his aggressiveness going down a little, and his puck skills as well. Puck control down to 88 now, but he can still get the job done here as an 85 overall, playing on that top pair with Ilya Zaitsev. The other defensemen look kind of mad. Jude Anderson's bad, Pop Still's bad, and Bjorn Klein is pretty bad as well. Offensively, a good first line, but other than that, not great. They have a little bit of depth here with 82s on their third line, but not amazing whatsoever. And then Bellamy still between the pipes. So the team is just getting a little bit worse with David Reinbacher dropping to an 85. I'm still hopeful for a playoff run as Reinbacher has only 2 years left on his contract, maybe 2 more years left in his career. So let's see what he decides to do. I'm hopeful for a good 17th season, I believe, in the NHL. Yikes, boys. In Reinbacher's 17th career year in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets go 33, 41, and 8. Reinbacher, however, on the third worst team in the NHL, scores 36 points and is a +5. Somehow on this team, you know, there's only 2 players on this team who are plus players, him and obviously his defensive partner as well. So pretty decent season out of Reinbacher actually it's a really good season out of Reinbacher despite his team being horrible. It's his 3rd best statistical season looking at points. He has dropped to an 82 though, so this could be his last year. That would be a horrible year to end it off on. He could at least finish out his contract, only played 81 games, so missed out on 1 game, I should say. And still playing almost 25 minutes of night at the age of 36. This man is an absolute monster. Still hitting at a rate of, over 1 hit per game, still over 1 block per game as well. So a good season out of Reinbacher despite his team performing poorly. But if this is it for his career, it was still a good one. Very serviceable career. He has, almost 500 points. So, maybe hoping playing 1 more year to try to hit 500 points, that would be kind of cool. But we will find out in the offseason. And this is a very strange occurrence. In Reinbacher's 18th season in the NHL, he's now an 80 overall, dropped to exact 7th defenseman, still making $15 million for another year. But he got traded to the Anaheim Ducks here in the offseason. That's something you don't see that happens too often. Uriel Reed in their top pair with Dustin Homer, so not a great defensive core there. Offensively, we have Albelin and Nilsson as 90 overalls. But other than that, oh my gosh, 70 overall, 78 overall, 79 overalls in their middle 6. And then they have 81, 83, and 82 on their 4th line, when this 4th line could easily be their 3rd line or even their 2nd line. So weird managing by the AI. And then an 84 and an 80 overall goalie. So not sure if this is going to be a playoff team. They do have the stars here with Albelin and Nilsson, but Reinbacher only at an 80 overall, not going to be able to help out as much as he did before. His stats all dropping. Physical down to 3.5, skating down to 3 stars, defense down to 3 stars, senses 3 stars, shooting 3 stars, and then puck skills at 4 stars. So kind of a rough progression out of David Reinbacher, but at 36 years old, what do you expect? The guy's not going to be as good as he was when he was 25. So with 1 more year left on his deal, we will have to see whether he decides to call it a career here in Anaheim or come back for 1 more. But got to simulate the regular season first. And what could be David Reinbacher's last season in the NHL, the Anaheim Ducks barely miss out on the playoffs, ending in 15th place, which should be good enough for a playoff spot, but unfortunately the West is a little bit stronger than the East. They go 39, 30, and 13, which just is not quite enough. And here he is. Reinbacher played in all 82 games this season, scoring 16 points, was a -11, but, in his older age, he can't really be relied on too much for offense. Still played almost 19 minutes on ice per night, though, which is good, and had 81 hits with 101 blocks. So, not as many hits, but more blocks than he usually got, which is nice to see out of Reinbacher. This could be his last year, now down to a 79 overall, still making $15 million, but his contract is expiring, so I wonder if he's going to call it a career here. And in the 2042 retirement class, David Reinbacher decides to call it a career. He had a great career, played 1,407 games, had 132 goals and 358 assists for 490 points. Drafted in 2023, 4th overall. He was quite a reliable player in his career, playing 6 full seasons of 82 games, and then after that having many seasons in the 78, 79, or not 79, but 78, 77 category, so only missing 5 games in many seasons. But in his earlier years, he did have that his first year in Montreal where he only played 59 games, which is a little bit unfortunate. But for the most part, pretty reliable. Goals-wise, he never had more than 12 goals and never had less than 2. Assists-wise, never had less than 4 assists and never had more than 33. Points-wise, he was always in that, like, what are we gonna say here? Like mid 30s, high 20s for points. Yeah, for the most of his career, he was in like the mid 20s to mid 30s, I would say, for most of his career in points. Looking at plus minus, he had that crazy year with Winnipeg where he's plus 43, but for the most part in the teens, actually I'd say for the most part just above 0. Does end as a career 139 plus 139 penalty minutes, though. Never had less penalty minutes than 27 in that year, where he only played 59 games, but other than that 30. So he was kind of a 30 to 60 penalty minute type of guy. Shots always was in the hundreds for the most part, it looks like. Game-winning goals, he had 24 game-winning goals out of his 132, 17 goals on the power play, 55 points out of his 490 coming on the power play as well. Short-handed goals, 6 short-handed goals out of his 132, and 12 short-handed points. Time on ice, this is where it gets kind of crazy. He averaged 23 minutes and 47 seconds time on ice, but he was getting like almost 26 minutes time on ice in Florida, where he was quite old as well. He was probably in his 30s in this year. This year he was probably a bit younger, but in that like 25 minutes of time on ice range, like I would say anywhere down here, which is probably towards the end of his career. He's good for basically 24 minutes of time on ice per year. It's just his first year in Montreal and his last year in Anaheim dragging him down. But for the most part, anywhere from 22 to 26 minutes of time on ice he's good for in any given year. Never took a face-off. And hits, I would say the same kind of thing, good for 120 hits throughout most of his career there. Blocked shots, I would say he had a good year in Florida, 131, Montreal as well. But yeah, so pretty good for about 100 block shots as well. Anywhere from 80 to 110 or so block shots, and then giveaways and takeaways here. So a real good career for David Reinbacher. If you guys don't know what we do now, we always look at where he would rank among current all-time leaders. So as of recording this video, right? So because I can't keep track of like Sidney Crosby's stats and stuff like that, he will be, maybe higher in games played than somebody, 20 years down the road in the real world, but I can't possibly keep track of all those stats. So we just do it by the current all-time list. So his 1,407 games played ties him at 39th place all-time with Dale Hunter and puts him one spot below Paul Coffey. His 132 goals ties him all-time with many players around the 920 mark or so. He's tied with Patrick Eaves, Bob Murray, Ernie Hickey, and many more. His 358 assists ties him at 389th all-time with Keith Atkin and puts him one spot below Gordie Roberts at 388. His 490 points places him at 546th position all-time, tying him with current defenseman Tyson Barrie and being 1 point below Andre Boudreas, something like that. So good for him with those points. His plus minus of career plus 139 ties him with Pierre Turgeon and puts him one spot below Charlie McAvoy. His 836 penalty minutes ties him at 527th place all time with Ching Johnson and puts him one penalty minute below Jamie Langenbrunner. His 2,245 shots puts him one shot above Pavel Datsyuk at 276th place all time and places him below Nicholas Backstrom. His 2,355 hits places him at 15th all time in the hit leaders, above Chris Kunitz and below Nick Foligno. His 1,806 blocked shots puts him 11th all time, above Alex Pietrangelo and below Ryan Suter. So I hope you guys had as much fun as I did looking at the possible career of David Reinbacher. He was a solid defenseman who could get you like 30 points in a season and give you a big plus. He was out there for his defensive prowess. Look at, even at 37 years of age, still has 86 defensive awareness. Definitely out there as more of a big body, good in the playoffs to give you guys more of, a physical aspect to your game. But a great career out of David Reinbacher, playing 1,400 games, almost eclipsing that 500 point mark. But let me know what you guys thought about his career down below in the comments. Who you want me to see do, who you want me to do in NHL 24. I'll try to get that out for you guys when the game drops and things like that. But that's the last career simulation of NHL 23. I hope you guys had fun watching. I had a lot of fun recording it. So thank you guys so much for all the support and all that stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Peace out.